IT. IT.
Daniel, can you kindly assist the chair and ensure that IT is really speeding up in assisting him to stream the meeting, please?
Yes, Chair, we live.
Thank you, IT. So at this point, then, I would like to welcome all members of the public that have joined us in the various streaming platforms, welcoming them to this ELS meeting number 268 of the 18th of June 2026. At this stage, then, before we carry on, let me just introduce myself. My name is Willie Majola. I'm the chairperson of this ELS committee, also a member of the ER. And I would also like to invite the members of the ER who are present here today, for them also to greet the members of the public. And I will start by asking Madam Maseti.
Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning, members and the staff of NERSA, and good morning to the members of the public. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Maseti. And then I'll call upon Madam Sitole.
Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning, members, NERSA personnel, and everyone that has joined us for this particular ELS meeting this morning. Thank you, Chairperson.
Also, I'm going to call upon Mr. Mkize.
Good morning, Chairperson, fellow members of the subcommittee, management and staff of NERSA, as well as the members of the public that are following us through the various live streaming platforms. My name is Mus Mkize. I'm the full-time regulator member primarily responsible for petroleum pipelines regulation and a member of this committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mkize. And then I'll call upon Madam Semane.
Good morning, Chair, and good morning to our members, our NERSA colleagues, and members of the public. I'm Tembeka Semane. I'm the part-time regulator here at NERSA.
Thank you, Madam Semane. And then we are now going to move on to the next item, which is the adoption of the agenda. The agenda has been sent out. I'm going to ask the members to indicate by show of hands if they are in support of the agenda. Members? Thank you, Madam Maseti. Thank you, Madam Semane. Thank you, Madam Sitole. I am also in support. Thank you. And then we are now going to go on to the next item, which is the declaration of interests. The declaration of interest forms have been sent. So we request everybody to indicate by signing the declaration of interest forms and sending them to the Secretariat. However, in this meeting, we'll also allow members, if they've got any verbal declarations they'd like to make. Over to you, members, for the verbal declarations. I do not see any hands in terms of verbal declarations. So on that note, we are now going to go to the first item to be presented, which is item number 5, Upongolo Local Municipality. And I'm going to ask Mr. Machebula to come in here. But as Mr. Machebula comes in, You must remind me, Mr. Matebula and the team. I think this matter has actually been to the ELS previously. It was recommended to go to the ER, and it did go to the ER. But there's one or two questions that the ER asked, and the team could not answer those to the satisfaction of the ER. And then that's why then it was asked to be sent back. But maybe if we can just start there, Mr. Matebula, and explain what the questions that were raised by the ER, so that we can focus on them, and thereafter you can do the rest of the presentation as you were planning to do it. Thank you, Mr. Matebula.
Chair, good morning, and good morning to you and the members, as well as my colleagues and everyone who's following us on the call. Chair, indeed, as you indicated, this item was brought before the subcommittee in April to request that the report be recommended to the regulator. And Chair, indeed, at the time, in April, the members had gone through the report, and we had dealt with the questions that were raised, and the report was recommended to the regulator. Chair, the report was presented at the regulator on the 29th of April, and the members needed clarity on the involvement of consultants in this process. And unfortunately, at the time, Chair, the members of the team who conducted this audit were on leave, and we could not therefore adequately address the issue of the use of consultants. Myself and Mr. Mkhize in the meeting, we were not aware of the use of consultants, and we needed to check with the team in terms of which consultant. However, Chair, we checked with the team, and we managed to clarify the issue that the involvement of the external parties that were recorded on the report was actually referring to the members of the complainant, which is AfriForum in this case, which were part of or who accompanied the NESA team during this audit to be able to elaborate on the reasons and the cause of their complaint, so that to allow the team to have an appreciation of what the matters were, so that we can be able to, as the regulator, make recommendations in terms of what the findings were during our audit when addressing and responding to the complaint that was received from AfriForum. So, Chair, so indeed, as I indicated, the report was recommended to the regulator. So, Chair, we had to therefore bring it back and request again today that if the members are happy with the report, we still request that it be recommended to ER so that we can have an opportunity to go and respond to this issue of the use of consultants. However, Chair, I also would want to make use of the opportunity to allow Ms. Poswa and the team to maybe talk to specifically the involvement of the AfriForum team, and maybe also indicate other matters that they may wish to indicate to the members. Ms. Poswa.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Matebula. Mr. Morris will take us through the whole presentation. Thank you. Morris Mapuyek. Thank you.
Excuse me, before we go through the whole presentation, let's just go back again. I don't know, Mr. Matebula has clarified, but maybe let me also add as well. Because my recollection is that in the submission that came to the ELS previously, as well as to the ER, you know, that the breakdown of who was there. I think obviously there was NESA, there was AfriForum, and there was somebody called electricians as a category on their own. And that's where then the members at ER asked, who are these, although they called it consultants, but it was electricians. And my understanding then, what has changed now, is that in the current submission, the team is actually explaining that those electricians who were taken to be consultants were actually members or in accompanying AfriForum. So you can call them consultants to AfriForum because they are actually electricians who are familiar with how the network works. That was the role that they were there for. So on that note, then we can then allow the team to continue with the presentation. Thank you.
Chairperson, good morning. Good morning to all the members of the energy regulator, as well as our colleagues and members of the community. Chairperson, just to be on that note, the team has since enhanced the submission. Maybe just to refer you, the team has enhanced Section 5 of the Upongolo submission, which is attached as the Appendix A. The electricians, which were 6 of them, they were participating under the banner of the AfriForum, of which they're representing ISCOM Upongolo, PP Electrical Services, IVN Electrical Services, Base 2 Electrical Services, as well as JJ ILAC Group. And I must say, Chairperson, that the electricians were not hired by NERSA, but they were just there under the banner of AfriForum, and they were customers of Upongolo local municipality. Chairperson, the submission, the purpose is to request the electricity subcommittee to recommend to the ER to approve the report outlining the Upongolo local municipality's non-compliance issues identified under the summary of findings on 4.26 of the submission itself, and then recommend to the ER that the matter be referred to the tribunal in terms of Section 18 of the Electricity Regulation Act. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. So I will now open it up to the members of the regulator if you've got any questions. By show of hands, members. Yes, I'll call upon Madam Maseti.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you to the team for clarification that is provided. Chairperson, I think that it is also just important to understand the process of conducting field investigations. Sometimes we may do our investigations sitting in the office, but there's part where regulators anywhere in the world will conduct field investigations. Then the question is whether it is improper to have those that are affected and those that alerted the regulator to the wrongdoing that is happening out there in the field as the regulator is not there. So you've got people that will bring something that they believe is unlawful or non-compliant, alert the regulator to that non-compliant. So when the regulator wants to see for itself what is going on and meet with the respondent in the matter, which is the licensee. Now, when people go with them to say that these specific flaws that we see that are not functioning on the ground physically. We are able to elaborate on the evidence that we brought to you for you to conduct this investigation based on the complaint, to point out these areas so that you can see for yourself. Now we need to then ask ourselves, is that something that is improper? Because these are the people, well, from my training, even as an independent regulator. So we take it that, yes, there will be people that are on the ground who will alert the regulator to the wrongdoing. Now, when those people are cooperating because they are the ones that brought the complaint and are cooperating by providing the evidence and showing the regulator where are these wrong things that we brought to your attention, is that improper for the regulator? My answer will be that it is not improper. All that we need to do is make sure that we never lose our independence. Even if they've shown us that, we will see that evidence that they're pointing us to and make sure that we will apply our independent discretion as to the information that they are adding by showing us the evidence that is contained in their complaint. So I think it is important that we just clarify that. It is, yes, unfortunate that it could not be properly clarified at the time, because as I hear it, at the time before the regulator, it was mostly framed as inspections that took place. Now, when we hear today from Ms. Poswa, it was already at the stage of investigation. They were investigating what was complained about by AfriForum. So that changes and it shifts the consideration of this matter. Because now it's an investigation pursuant to a complaint, and therefore those that have complained, they are cooperating with the regulator to show exactly what they were complaining about. And in my view, that is not improper. Unless there is something else that now in terms of the independence, the regulator has probably compromised its independence. And that is not before the report that we have in this subcommittee today. That's the first thing for me to clarify that part. The second issue that I have here, and we need to be consistent with this. So if this is an investigation report that that entails certain recommendations to the regulator, or it contains findings of non-compliance, so we need therefore to change the purpose and change the recommendations. We must then recommend to the energy regulator to note the report, because, and this will be in line with the previous reports, because the regulator here is requested to sit as a tribunal, which is my next phrasing or rephrasing that we need to do on sub B, where we say that the subcommittee recommends to the energy regulator that the matter be referred to the tribunal. So we don't do that referral and frame it in this way. So what we want the regulator to do is to take a decision to sit as a tribunal. And that's how we invoke the relevant section of the Act. And the language of the Act must be used in the same way, because we don't always have the tribunal that is there. That's why we'll have the tribunal in small letters there. And this was clarified from long ago, even from the time we received a senior counsel legal opinion some years ago. So I will therefore recommend that, or suggest that, we change the second decision to say that we recommend to the energy regulator to sit as a tribunal in terms of section 18 if it's section 18 of the Act. And then the first recommendation must be to note the report. And there was a reason for that we don't say it must approve. It must just note the report so that it can base the decision to sit as a tribunal on that report that it has noted, not approved. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Madam Maseti. And I will now call upon Mr. Mkhize.
Thanks, Chairperson. I want to repeat what has already been said, except to highlight the fact that I find some comfort that there was work that were being done prior to receiving the complaint regarding the non-compliance of this municipality. But we need to craft it accordingly, account for the time. For example, when we look at page 3 of 66 under 4.1, it says that Upona did not submit the required corrective action plan. And then but there is this final audit report of August 2020. I'm just concerned if you look, you are 6 years down the line now. And I think almost 6 years down the line, I think it's important to account for the time. When we go to 4.2, we're talking of discussions as if it is just loosely. I think we are more of a policeman if we coming from the point of view of compliance monitoring and enforcement. And we need to be categorical. We need to be able to talk to the time frames. When something is done, like in under 4.6, we need to state the time. When was it done? When was the response? So we are able to account for the time. Even if you look at 4.8 and 4.8, the date of the 9th of September, date of the 9th of October 2025, there are issues that are raised there as logistical issues. Let's be very clear what are these issues and be able to indicate, for example, the AfriForum was putting impetus on something that was already underway. We need to articulate that in that manner. And I think under 4.4, where you said you spoke of approved version of the framework, you wanted to say a revised version of the framework, which is a compliance framework. I think if you know those things, I won't repeat the issues that have been spoken around this being an investigation, in the sense that there was already identified a non-compliance. We had to look deeper into that and come up with findings, which then in terms of section 18, they can be pursued by way of the ER sitting as a tribunal. Hence the need to change that. And I note under 5.1, for example, we talk of section 33 is one of the regulatory frameworks. Maybe we call it a regulatory provisions from our side. My comments and the chairperson. Thanks for the opportunity and thanks to the presenters.
Thanks, Mr. Mkhize. May I now call upon the team to respond to what the members have raised?
Yeah, Chair, I think the members have raised points of enhancements. And Chair, we have taken cue and the guidance provided on how to phrase the recommendations. And I think the first comment from Ms. Maseti was mainly to confirm that the activities that took place with the involvement of the affected parties was to mainly strengthen the work of the regulator, and there is nothing improper with the regulator, the way in which the regulator has conducted this particular investigation, and we appreciate that affirmation. and Chair, the guidance on how to craft and the recommendations, Chair, that is also noted, and will ensure that when we also take this matter forward, we indicate that the regulator is to note the report. And Chair, I think the recommendation for enhancements, as indicated by Mr. Mkhize, to account for the time lapse or the timestamp in all the activities that were involved since 2020 up until now. Chair, we will properly indicate that as well before the matter sits before the regulator. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Mathebula. Can I check with the members if they've got any follow-up questions? Yes, Madam Maseti.
Thanks, Chairperson. Chairperson, I just wanted on the issue of the decision, the rephrasing. I take it that you, as the chairperson, as I already provided, you will, make the change today, because it must be the decision that is expected from us today, that we note instead of approve. That's all. We note on the first part of the decision, and then going to the second part, we rephrase to say the regulator must sit as a tribunal. So those are the words when you read out the decision for the record. So I just wanted to clarify that aspect, that is the decision for today that we are supposed to take. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Madam Maseti. Indeed, we will deal with it exactly as you have stated. And now I do not see any other hands from members. And therefore, we are now going to move towards voting. Before voting then itself, I'm going to start by saying that, yes, we are aware of the enhancements that came from Mr. Mkhize. So we'll have to take all those announcements. I'm not going to repeat them that Mr. Mkhize said. And then thereafter, we are now I'm going to now read out for the record the recommendations, which is now a change to what was previously submitted. So the actual recommendation is going to read part 1. It's that the ER must note the report. Then secondly, we are it's going to read that the ER must then sit down as a tribunal in accordance with the law. So with that enhancements from Mr. Mkhize, as well as the new recommendation as read out, can I ask members by show of hands if they are in support of that? Thank you, Madam Maseti. Thank you, Madam Simane. Thank you, Madam Sitole. I am also in support, and thank you as well, Mr. Mkhize. So on that note then, ladies and gentlemen, and we are now going to move then on to the next item on the agenda, which is item 6, approval of ESCOM's MYPD 3 RCA. Once again, we're going to call upon Mr. Mathebula and his team.
Chairperson, thanks. So this item, Chair, it's before the subcommittee. And Chair, our request is that the subcommittee approve the publication of the MIPD5 RCA, which is attached as Annexure A, and also approve the consultation paper and its publication, which is attached as Annexure B. And also note the proposed timelines that we envisage this particular process to follow before the RCA itself can be considered for approval by the regulator. Chair, this is as delegated on our delegation matrix, section 211. And Chair, just to talk a bit on the RCA process itself. So this application came to the regulator, or came to NERSA on the 30th of March. Chairperson, it's supposed to be 2026 and not 2025. So, Chair, we obviously the regulator or NERSA has developed what we call a multi-year price determination methodology, where this regulatory clearing account process is actually enshrined or detailed. And the process itself, Chair, it deals with, it's a mechanism that deals with the pass-through and clawbacks, which arises from variances between what of the multi-year price determination versus what the utility would have experienced as an actual cost or revenue at the time. So, Chair, we have put together a consultation paper which we would want to put out to stakeholders for comments, and we have proposed timelines. Given that if we were to get this approval today, we would then publish for a minimum of 30 days and also have a public hearing before the matter can be brought back to the committee, Chair, to consider for approval. So the timelines that we are proposing, Chair, are indicated under Table 3, which is on page 5 of 166 on the green stamp. So, Chair, we therefore would like to make a recommendation that the subcommittee approves the publication of this consultation paper to allow stakeholders to interact with this application from Eskom, and also to allow the regulator to consider the different submissions from stakeholders, also through the process of a public hearing before the matter can serve at this committee as well as the regulator for approval. Chair, let me end it here, and the team will assist me in taking questions if there's any.
Thank you, Mr. Mathebula. Let me now open it up to the members. If they've got any questions, members. Yes, Madam Maseti.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thanks to the team for the introduction of the submission. Chairperson, I just want to start off again, the way that we frame these things and also for alignment, I think it is quite important. I want to start off with, again, the decision that is sought. And this should not be repeated because it was clarified before. Two things. One is that what we approve is the consultation, is to publish the consultation document. That's the approval. Then the other decision is to note the consultation paper or the discussion document. We note it. And then what we do, we just approve that it be published for stakeholder comment. Now, I notice on the delegation of authority what we are required to do. Firstly, I think we also referenced the delegation that was given by the regulator incorrectly. I am not aware of the 2027 delegation matrix because we're not in 2027 even now. So there's a problem in 3.1 that that needs to be corrected. And then we sort of paraphrased it. But if you look at the table itself, that's where it clarifies. The key thing there is consultation. Then it says that what is requested is for public comments. So we request the public comment, and then it says that approval. So I thought also even RSU clarified this, including Mr. Mabunda, the secretary of this committee, to indicate that we note the consultation paper and we approve the publication thereof. So if we can get that right and correct the delegation of authority as well as the decision that is sought from us today so that we take the proper decision. And then I would like to go to paragraph 4.2 of the covering submission, just so that we are all clear. Yes, there is a revenue of 334 billion that was approved for FY25, which is 2024-25. Now, this part that says including previously approved RCAs and all of that, I don't know what that means, because I don't think that is what is before us. If that the amount was that amount, if that amount included other cost or revenues that ought to have been recovered, it's already included in the 334 billion. So let it be, because that's what was approved without us confusing things to make reference to previously approved RCA adjustments and all of the things that we are saying here. Then again, what is confusing is I don't know why we are mentioning the tariffs for the other years, to say that based on this revenue of 334 billion determination, NERSA approved standard tariffs of 195 cents per kilowatt hour for whatever year, 2023 and all of that. Can we try and just so that, because it is confusing. And then we also go to 173 and then we get to the tariff of 12.74. Really, this is confusing, and for what year and what not. We're dealing with the RCA here, and it must be for the specific year. And we know what was the revenue for that specific year. Now let's deal just with the variance, how it occurred for that specific revenue, without bringing other things that are really confusing. Because if we go to the other years and what happened in the other RCAs, I don't think that it will be useful, because decisions were already taken. And then if they then contributed to the final revenue amount that we ultimately approved, so let it be. We're not getting into those other things. So that's what I would suggest that we do. And then, Chair, maybe what we then need to clarify on the table here is is this part that says allowed revenue tariff-based sales, which I'm not understanding. And then we say RCA. What are we saying? What are we trying to say there? I'm not understanding. Maybe we need to rephrase it properly so that all of us can understand that amount and that cost that will be imposed, so that we don't just allow something that, at least from my side, I don't understand it. It's allowed revenue tariff-based sales, and then RCA, RCA. What is that? Let's put it for everyone to understand, and then explain also that the adjustment that we have made. It was not part of the NERSA decision. I see that there's a 0 there from the NERSA's decision, but now it gets sneaked in via the RCA. How did it come about? Because remember, RCA, it looks at what was the decision, because it was a forward-looking decision for the revenue. Then if in that forward-looking decision, assumptions could not materialize, maybe we overstated or there was understatement or understated amount. Now you come through this process to explain that variation, how it occurred. Then you correct it. So what I'm looking at is that in terms of the NERSA decision for that year, there was no allocation of values. It's a zero. Now, all of a sudden, there is an amount that ESCOM is applying for. And that for me is significant if one takes into account the purpose of the RCA. And now if there is suddenly an amount that crops up, of which amount was not part of the decision, then you do need to explain how it came about, especially on that aspect. Because what you now do, you seem to be allowing that amount, but you made a small adjustment for that amount. And then now for the decision that you want NERSA at the right time to take, you are allowing the amount of 1.1 billion. So we need to get clarity on that so that customers understand exactly how this all of a sudden comes at the back door when it was not there before. If you can kindly, please just spend time on that, and because you're doing it also for customers out there, people that are going to be affected and must be able to pay for that cost. I would like to leave it at that, Chairperson, for the rest of the items. At least we're still taking it for public comment. So I will engage further on the other items. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Masedi. And now I'll call upon Mr. Mkize.
Thank you, Chairperson. And thanks, Mr. Matabula, for the presentation. Apologies for the slight delay in unmuting. I'd just like to just go to specific areas here. When we go to page 3 of 166, you know, when you're talking of these figures in the narrative, just try to let the numbers correspond exactly to what is on the table, just for to make it easier for the reader. You know, for example, we've got the 300 million, but 300 billion, which is actually the 300.190. So if we just to make it correspond, to make it easier, and then on that table 2, if you maybe say, you know, the first decision, just make it the MYPD decision, NERSA MYPD decision, and then the second NERSA decision in the last column, just make it the NERSA RCA decision. You know, just to clarify, or you're talking of the 23-24 and then the 24-25. Those two decisions, they are confusing. If you can just mark them as such accordingly. And then when it comes to your indicative timelines, I'm not so sure whether when it comes to ELS, to consider the draft decision, you've got the 26th of September they indicated. And then the energy regulator decision, you've got the 26th of September there too. And then you also have got the regulator executive committee. You also have got the 26th of the 10th there. I think it would help, noting the many special meetings we have, if you can try, when making plans of this nature, make them based on the standard schedule that we already have in place when it comes to the dates of committees and subcommittees. Try as much as possible to fit them there. So I wonder if these are dates that are corresponding with the standard dates, and where possible, to say let's not have a date that is corresponding to a 1 day, not giving space between ELS and ER in terms of decision making. If you can just try to do that, please, when it comes to the timelines. And then also on the other issue, just trying to get the chairperson, just bear with me, please. Yes, on the questions to the stakeholders, under 4.3.2, this is question number 4. You say stakeholders are invited to comment on whether Eskom's RAP variance of 1.551 billion and the elements making up the variance. I think it's not complete. Just say maybe there is appropriate, or befitting. Just phrase it correctly. And then on the next one, that is on page 18 of 166, by the way. And then on page 19, I'm not so sure of that number that came out, that is on the table there, the 879. That 879 as an actual, being a negative cost element. What does it actually mean? If you may just help me there to understand for the OCGT fuel cost, as it came negative. I would expect a 0, but if you can just try to explain for me. And then you also say under 4.43, NTCSA incurred a carbon tax liability for carbon dioxide emissions in category 1A3A, domestic aviation, and 2G1B, SF6 leaks. If you can just kind of unpack it a bit, that one, to be clear. And then under the stakeholder question, you're saying stakeholders are requested to comment. Maybe just delete that whether there, just to say comment on the variance of 6.6 billion shown in table 4 above. And then would be, you can say, given that maybe to say coal usage and startup oil and gas, and delete this and coal, are the biggest drivers of or for the variance of 6.6 billion. What is your view on this? Just to rephrase it like that. Even that question, you can even not necessarily have it here, because I think that in subsequent questions, you kind of unpack it. And then when it comes to coal usage under 4.4.4, you talk of that 76.1 billion. I think you need to just add to say, despite generation being lower, then you put it at what value, then the approved value, just to post. One would not expect the usage to be high if the power that went out is less, and somehow it's confusing to me. It seems like if you look at stakeholder question number 9, you're saying stakeholders are invited to comment on whether Eskom's coal usage costs are reasonable, considering the improvement in the performance of the coal fleet. And then maybe one would ask a question: why are they not sufficiently compensating for lower OCGT usage? the use of coal in this regard, in terms of being lower in cost and reducing the cost that is spent on OCGT. Yeah, I think the second question, good as it can be, as it is, but maybe to be more specific, if we're talking of procurement strategies, they deliver operational efficiencies. One would tend to ask if it's not just operational efficiencies. For me, it should be operational and financial efficiencies. If we can have that and add another statement to say that you may also comment on how these efficiencies may be derived, if you put it that. And then under 4.4.6, at the end, if you can put maybe also the gigawatt hours that you are looking at, if you say that more than assumed, but also put what was assumed in terms of gigawatt hours. Sorry there for taking a long time, Chairperson. My sincere apologies for that. I'm using the same instrument for commenting as well as going through the convene. I think I'm done with that. But the work done is also appreciated, I must say. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Mr. Mkize. I'll now call upon Advocate Sithole.
Thank you, Chairperson, and also thanks to the presenters. So mine, I will start first. It's just a point of clarity, which I believe we need to look into going forward. It's the issue on 1.1.1 under purpose and also 15.1.1 under recommendation on whether do we have to approve the consultation paper or note it. And my view is that, or rather I've noted the view that we should not approve, but we should note. My concern is that, Chairperson, anything that gets published, whether it's a consultation paper or any document framework, the energy regulator takes responsibility of whatever is published on its behalf. So I just thought that maybe RSU can just try and go and look at the delegation of authority, and then we ensure that it covers us properly, because it seems as if then if we're noting this particular consultation paper, it will be published without any indication of consideration by any structure of the energy regulator other than to note. Chair, the second thing that I wanted to highlight was on the timelines, especially after the public hearing has been held to, I see that the team has allocated, it's page 5, they have allocated 12 days to draft the RFD, and that will consider or include rather the consideration of the stakeholders' comments. And my question is to the team, do they believe this is sufficient? Because on such matters as well, we often get presenters being really given an opportunity to further submit written submission to augment their presentation. So I just thought that maybe they could just check if that period is sufficient enough, because even when they get the written comments, at times they may even have to engage those that have made the submissions. And I think the one point that I have, I think it was covered by Mr. Mkize on page 19 in relation to question 8.9, where we're using weather and shows. I think he has read the correction into the record. But I think it is important as well for the team to look at how they have crafted some of the questions, especially where the word whether has been used. You don't see anything that follows whether or not, or whether what they would say, and at the end, indicate or not. For example, I'll just make an example with page 20. When you look at question 9, the first one, it says that stakeholders are invited to comment on whether Eskom's coal usage or usage costs are reasonable considering the improvement in the performance of the coal fleet. And they've left it at that. So I thought that maybe the usage of the weather, the word weather, should just properly be looked into in relation to all the questions that have been drafted by the team. Chair, I'll stop there. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Advocate Sitole. Before coming to ask the team to respond, may I first start by asking RSU to come and give us guidance as to how we must phrase the recommendations, especially to whether we are approving the publication or noting or whatnot. But let's just start with the RSU to guide us in terms of how we phrase the recommendations. Thereafter, we'll then ask the team to respond to the rest of the matters raised by the members. So RSU, over to you with regards to how we must properly phrase the recommendation. Where is RSU?
Chairperson, apologies. I was multitasking. Can you please assist me? What did you seek from us?
Okay, the issue here is that obviously, if you look at the submission itself, with regards to what was being requested by the team, they were saying that just hold on. What if you look at the recommendation, they were saying we must approve the publication of the RCA, but there's a view from some of the members that the committee must actually note the report. You know.
Okay.
And,
I'm with you, Chair.
No, thank you, Mr. Mabunda.
I'm with you. Should I respond or should we let Mr. Mkhize come first?
All right. Oh, sorry. Let's allow Mr. Mkhize to come in first. Mr. Mkhize.
Thanks, Chairperson. As things stand, my understanding also that we note the report or whatever document that needs to be published, and then we approve the publication thereof. Let's stand with that, and then under governance, discuss if there's any need to depart from that stance. That is my understanding. If we can do it under as a part of governance, to say is which way do we go. But as things stand, we note the document and approve the publication. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mkhize. And then over to you, Mr. Mabunda.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I will start by giving a minor context in terms of the recommended resolution that we must take, Chair. Chair, as things stand, we do not have sufficient information to convince the subcommittee to approve this matter. Hence, we are asking that we publish this matter so that the public out there can assist us with additional information that they may have to strengthen our case so that this matter can be approved or recommended to be approved by ER at a later stage. With that said, Chair, at this stage, we do not approve the consultation document. However, we can note as an additional, but it's not that necessary, but we can approve its publication for public comment and then note the proposed consultation timelines within those which are embedded in the same consultation paper, Chair. And then we can close it with those two recommendations. We approve the publication of a consultation paper, and by approving, we're automatically noting. So it's not necessarily to note as a standalone resolution, as well as approve the publication as a standalone. However, if we insist on going through that, which is a duplication, we can go that. And then we end at that, Chairperson, with those two resolution. Approve the publication of a consultation paper and note the proposed timelines, Chair. And then the document will be approved after we have concluded with the publication process, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mabunda. All right, as I said, at this stage, we just wanted to check with RSU, and we can see it's we've heard what they are saying. But now, what I would like to do is that I'm going to ask the team to respond to all of the other issues that were raised by the members. Over to you, team.
Chairperson, thank you. Let me, maybe before allowing Mr. Ntakeni and the colleagues to talk specifically to table 2 of the submission, let me acknowledge the comments that were made with regard to the timelines. And Chair, we will look at the timelines to ensure that it does not. It allows us enough time to consider the stakeholder inputs and all the work that is to go in between. But I must indicate that the way in which it is written, the 26 represent the year, and the team has actually considered the time in between on many of the line items. So, however, we will review it, Chair, for adequacy, but we will still want to process this application as soon as possible, as efficient as possible. And Chair, we also note the comments and enhancement on the way in which we should be phrasing our questions, and that, Chair, has been noted. We will address it. Chair, I maybe should invite Mr. Ntakeni or whoever is assisting him to firstly maybe start with the table on page 19, Chair, that deals with the OCGT fuel costs, where the question was the number 879, which is reflected in brackets, just to explain why it is reflected as such. And then we can go back to the table 2 on the cover submission, so that we can deal with what we are reflecting there in terms of the inclusion of the RCA on the table. And Chair, he will talk to it line by line, and I think it will assist to clarify why those figures are indicated as such. And yeah, so I see Ms. Magubane already has a hand. Maybe she wants to deal with the primary energy, and Mr. Ntakeni will also come through. Thanks.
Yeah, can I also ask the team as well to speed up a little bit when they give the responses? Okay, Madam Magubane.
Thanks, Chairperson, and good morning to you and members and colleagues. So in terms of the OCGT fuel, So the RCA balance is a negative as Eskom is giving money back to consumers. What happened there is that there had been some couple of years where there were some engagements between Eskom and SARS, and there were some rebates that were outstanding, which then they settled, and so the amount that has been received is the one that is then sort of squaring up what Eskom used for the OCGT section, and therefore the negative amount is what is being returned back. We are in the process of analyzing and getting into the detail of the nuts and bolts of these numbers. As you would appreciate that we are still on a consultation stage, but we'll be looking at them thoroughly, following the methodology in terms of assessing what the numbers, or rather what we recommend. But this is just them sorting out issues of rebate that have been accumulating over a couple of years. But members can just clarify me if I've misunderstood the question as well. Thanks. Thanks, Chair. And also we note obviously the issues around enhancing the questions on a call as well. Thanks.
Okay, any more? Sorry.
Through you, Chairperson, I note the responses, but as I said, also the issues I raised, questions as well as enhancements. So just enhance, and on the issue of this rebate issue, we just put an asterisk and we just indicate that what goes out should somehow also make sense to the reader. Because we're trying to get the reader to respond, and that response is based on a better understanding what is contained in the document. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Mr.
Sure.
Mkize. Yes.
Can I ask Mr. Ntakeni to come through, Chair? Thanks.
Okay.
Yes, Chairperson, thanks, and good morning. So I believe you want me to answer a question on table 2 regarding the inclusion of the amount relating to RCA balances. So what I can indicate is that table 2 is the table that we are trying to show the base on which Eskom has applied this RCA, which is NERSA decision. So this is the decision that NERSA had already taken. In that decision, I remember very well, Eskom had requested for an RCA of 1.7, but at that moment, we had only approved to liquidate 1.1. Hence, that's why at the last column, an amount of 1.1 relating to RCA was included. So this is the table that we are showing, or we are demonstrating the base on which this RCA come from. It is from the 12.76%, which was approved on the 2024-25 revenue decision by the energy regulator. I hope that clarifies, Chair. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. So at this stage, then, let me ask the members if they've got any further questions by show. Okay, I do not see any further hands in terms of follow-up questions from the members. And therefore, we now need to move to voting for the recommendations. So before I read the recommendations as amended, as guided by RSU, I think firstly, we have to realize that there is enhancements to the narrative enhancements that the members have raised. I trust that the team has noted all those enhancements so that we can make the documentation to be better, for the documentation to be up to the standard that is required based on the enhancements that we came from the members. So if we take those enhancements and include them into the documentation, and now I'm going to ask then for members to show by show of hands if they're in support of the recommendations, which briefly says, number one, let us note the report. Secondly, let us approve the publication of this report. And thirdly, let us note the timelines. By show of hands, members, if you agree. Yeah, thank you, Madam Maseti. I also agree as well.
I support. I've got a problem lifting in my hand.
All right, thank you. Mr. Mkiza also supports. Other members, but okay, I see now Madam Simon also in support.
My hand is also up, Chairperson.
Okay. Madam. So on that, we are going to item 7, and once again, I'm going to
Yeah, Chair, I'm not sure if it's network on my side. I'm struggling to hear you, but maybe it's me.
It is very bad.
We
It's
can't hear
also
you.
delaying the meeting. I don't know
Over
what's
to
happening.
you.
RSU, please, can you assist?
RSU, please assist. But Mr.
You can
Matebula,
continue,
yes.
Chairperson. You're sounding much better now.
All right, Chair.
Assisting.
Yeah, if you allow, Chair, then this item, Chair, it's brought before the subcommittee. Chair, it's a request again to note this consultation paper that we have developed that talks to the draft rules for distributors to keep a register of facilities with capabilities of less than 100 kilowatts. Also to note the timelines, the proposed timelines, and approve the publication of this consultation paper. Chair, let me allow Mr. Mkiza Jr. just to give a bit of a background before we consider the recommendation and the questions from the members, Chair. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Matebula, and a very good morning to the Chair, the board members, as well as our colleagues. Mr. Matebula, I think you've covered it, but just in terms of the background, the submission first served at the ELS of the 19th of May, where we were guided by members to consult the public more widely in terms of the requirements of the Promotion of Administrative Justice Act, which is the PAJA. So, Chair, this is basically in response to that guidance that we were provided. Chair, maybe also just to mention that this is a requirement of the era for distributors to keep an accurate, up-to-date register using NESA approved templates. So this is to provide distributors with this approved template, as well as to submit annual reports to NESA noting compliance with data protection laws outlined in the POPIA Act. And then, Chair, maybe just to mention last, it is required of customers to also register their facilities and to provide compliance certificates in terms of their installations. So, Chair, this is the crux of what the submission is about, and I would like to then go to the recommendations in section 14, which is to recommend that the ELS notes the draft rules for distributors to keep a register of facilities with a capacity of less than 100 kilowatts, and then to approve the publication of the consultation paper and to note the timelines indicated in the consultation paper. Thank you very much, Chair, for this opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Mkize. Can I now call upon the members of the regulator for questions or comments or enhancements? Members? I do not see any hands. So we are now going to go straight to the recommendations, just to go over it again. It's being recommended that the ER must note the draft rules. The ER must approve the consultation paper. So sorry, let me start afresh. It is recommended that the ELS notes the draft rules. It must also approve the consultation paper. It must note the timelines. So with that, by show of hands, members, if you are in support.
Chair, apologies. We are not approving the consultation paper. We are approving the publication.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Thanks for that. So our apologies. On the second one, we are approving the publication of the consultation paper. Thanks, Mr. Mabunda. So I see Madam Simane, Mr. Mkize. I'm also in support. I also see Madam Sitole. So thank you very much. So based on that, we are now done with item number 7. We are now going to go to item number 8, which is a consultation paper on the draft rules for the market inquiry. Over to you, Mr. Matebula.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chair, this document before us, it is brought before the subcommittee to note the draft report, Chair, and also to approve the publication of the consultation document, and also to note the consultation document itself. And Chair, just to indicate that this comes from the work that started the previous calendar year or financial year, where, Chair, a market inquiry was initiated by the regulator. And Chair, we had many stakeholders participating and providing inputs. This was, Chair, in regard to, it was stemming from the widespread concern from stakeholders regarding the issues around affordability, transparency, cost reflectivity, and implementation of fixed charges, and the ESCOM tariff restructuring under the approved retail tariff plan. So, Chair, I would allow Ms. Botha, who was the lead on this project, to just give the members the background of the work done and the reason and the need for the current process that we are undertaking. Thank you, Chair.
Chair, before Madam Botha, let's check if the CEO is a lingering hand or she needs to speak. It was the lingering chair. Madam Botha, please proceed.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good morning to you, the board members and colleagues. The inquiry indeed, as introduced, commenced on the 25th of September 2025 upon the publication of the terms of reference. It was initiated in response to widespread concerns from customers and industry participants that the actually electricity bill impacts being experienced were significantly higher than the average tariff increases approved. This followed the implementation of Eskom's retail structural tariff plan, which estimated an average tariff increase of 12.7%. However, the interaction with some categories of customers also revealed that changes in the time of use structure had a significant role in the impact. And this holds especially true for the agricultural sector. So within Eskom's RTP, the time of use structure had changed in that the peak duration increased by approximately 67%, which is the most expensive time for electricity usage. So it moved from 3 hours previously to 5 hours per day currently. And then the off-peak times, which is now the cheaper segment from Eskom's electricity prices, reduced by 20%. So from an economic perspective, the combination of these changes have effectively increased the electricity cost beyond the anticipated 12.7%, even when consumption remained unchanged among customers. The inquiry, therefore, sought to understand the extent of these impacts across the customer groups, and also taking into account that there are changes currently taking place in the electricity sector. And it was also taken with the Eskom's historical revenue model in mind, which heavily relied on selling electricity volumes. However, due to price pressures, the demand has declined significantly over time, and particularly for large industrial customers. The report elaborates on demand destruction and underlying effects, and this is detailed on page 29 to 31 of the submission. So the declining sales volumes created a challenge that when fewer units of electricity are sold, the fixed cost base for electricity system that must still be recovered, even though volumes have been shrinking. And the Eskom's tariff structure was therefore partially a response to this structural issue, moving more towards recovering more fixed system costs rather than the volumetrics. But the inquiry examined whether this transition created any unintended consequences for certain customer groups, and this is discussed in detail on page 39 to 48 of 130. The inquiry also considered both quantitative and qualitative evidence as provided by various customers, and consumption data from various industrial customers and stakeholder submissions, as well as cost structures were submitted, and their team simulated a database and a data set that sort of provided us with a trend to ascertain the extent of the impacts. A public hearing was further convened on the 17th of November to gain more insights from various industry players. And the purpose was really to understand not only the numerical impact of the tariff changes, but also how those impacts translated into real economic consequences for different users, And in this regard, the inquiry determined that different customers have different abilities to respond to tariffs. For an example, an industrial customer may be able to shift production schedules according to what suits its affordability, whereas an agricultural customer operating an irrigation equipment may not have that much flexibility because its operations is linked to a lot of other factors, including the weather conditions and the crop cycles. This is also detailed on the draft report from pages 53 to 62 of 130. And then we've also captured from these exercises key findings, and these are all detailed from page 70 to 73 of 130. One of which findings relates to the difference between the system level revenue neutrality and customer level impact. So at an aggregate level, the restructuring supports the improved recovery of fixed system costs for distributors. However, the inquiry discovered that the distribution of these costs across customer categories is not uniform. And also the restructuring of the time of use periods surfaced as one of the biggest drivers of impact, specifically for the agricultural sector, as this sector has limited ability to shift its consumption. The extension of peak periods also reduced off-peak opportunities and increased exposure to higher rates, and therefore translated into significant cost demands for some agricultural users. And then the inquiry also considered the implications for the South Africa's evolving electricity market. And as we understand that the sector is moving towards a more competitive environment, including the development of the South African wholesale electricity market, SAWEM for short. And we understand that tariff structures must support efficient competition. The inquiry therefore considered whether the fixed charges and capacity charges and legacy costs could potentially create any barriers for new entry into the market or raise any rivals costs or distort any future market participation. At this stage, there has been no conclusive evidence of anti-competitive conduct and within the scope of the inquiry. However, findings indicate that future tariff reforms should be assessed not only from a cost recovery perspective, but also against competition fairness and market development objectives. And then another consideration was whether there had been any additional revenue collected by Eskom as a result of the restructuring. And their inquiry really did not get into that detail because it is understood that there are there's a lot of information that needs to be considered to reach to a conclusive finding in that respect. And the inquiry therefore recommends a proposal for an ex-post assessment requiring Eskom to provide detailed revenue recovery, including sales information and demand and customer migration information, which is not readily available. And that is one of the recommendations as a way forward. And the inquiry also identified implementation concerns relating distributor compliance with approved tariff structures. And this specifically concern was raised regarding excessive tariff increases implemented by certain municipalities, including Ndlambe municipality. And the issue of surcharges and convenience charges also emerged strongly throughout the inquiry. And for areas where NERSA does not have direct enforcement powers, cooperation will be required, and that is made as one of the recommendations. And then We also looked at another aspect, which is the household representation within the inquiry itself. And one of the findings is that the available quantitative data set was more representative of industrial and large power users rather than the households. And we do recognize that this has provided the inquiry team with valuable insights into high consumption customers, but it did not sufficiently cover the experience of residential customers, especially the low income and indigent users. The draft report therefore makes a recommendation for a consideration of a second phase or follow-up market inquiry focused explicitly on household impacts. Given the complexity of the household affordability analysis, this may require external technical support to ensure that evidence-based adequately represents this customer segment. And this again is captured in the report as one of the recommendations. And just on a high level, a benchmarking exercise was undertaken to compare electricity prices and affordability indices across jurisdictions. And this is contained from pages 63 to 65 of the submission. As I draw closer to my conclusion, Chair, another observation has been the Competition Commission's cost of living report, which also raises related concerns regarding electricity affordability and cost pass-throughs, as well as tariff setting approaches. And given the overlap between the Commission's findings and the issues identified through this inquiry, a collaboration between the electricity regulation, RAR team, as well as GCM is anticipated to prepare a policy brief. And the objective really would be to clarify the regulatory issues raised from that report and assess areas requiring further coordination and ensure that NERSA's response is aligned across the divisions. In conclusion, Chair, overall, the conclusion of the inquiry is that tariff reform remains necessary in this changing electricity landscape. And but the allocation of costs and the implementation approaches thereof and customer impacts require to be carefully considered, as well as to balance out all these competing interests of sustainability, affordability, and efficient market development. To ensure inclusive and a transparent process, Chair, we now seek to publish the draft report together with the consultation paper for stakeholders to interact with the contents so that their views may be synthesized in the final report. And for this reason, Chair, the submission requests that the subcommittee notes the draft market inquiry report, which is included as Annex A, and to note the consultation paper, as well as to approve the publication of the consultation paper and the draft report for stakeholder consultation and public comment. And to also note the Competition Commission cost of living report as attached in Annex C, and also to note the proposed interdivisional collaboration anticipated to prepare the brief, the policy brief. And that brings me to the end of the presentation, Chair. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Madam Porter. So I'm going to call upon the members if they've got questions or enhancements. Over to you, members. Yes, thank you, Madam Maseti.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thanks to the team and Ms. Porter for the comprehensive introduction of the market inquiry preliminary findings. Chairperson, I just wanted to, first of all, clarify on the process. So the stage that we are in, I think the consultation should not just be a general consultation. when it comes to the market inquiry, because we did consult extensively and asked for written submissions. So what we need to do at this stage of inquiry, because it cannot be a process that goes on forever. And a market inquiry is not necessarily an investigation in itself. It is a tool that is used by regulators around the world to uncover what might not be working, what is not meeting the consumer's needs, what could be sort of seen to be sort of harmful to consumers. So it seems to me now this report does uncover certain things. What it then has, it does show certain evidence. Firstly, that indeed there were price increases or tariff increases ranging from, say, 18% to 30%. That was obviously above the 12.74% approved by NERSA in March 2025 through the ERSA process, which is your ESCOM retail tariff. They were above that. The question that we need to ask ourselves is whether then the fact that the prices to customers went up between 18% to 30%, was it a problem on the side of ESCOM during implementation? We need to zoom into now straight where we are getting. So there's a decision that was taken by NERSA on the TRP tariff restructuring plan on issues of fixed charges, the generation capacity charges, as well as some of the legacy charges. The question that we need to ask ourselves, did this problem of price of tariffs that are above the increase that is above 12.74%, did it arise as a result of how ESCOM implemented the unbundling of the GCC as well as the fixed charges? That question is critical, and we need that question to be clarified and to see what evidence the report talks to. That is the focus, and it also talks to the scope of the market inquiry from the beginning. So if that can be flagged so that we know very well what should be the recommendations of the inquiry in that regard, to the extent that certain evidence that has been uncovered shows that there is a problem during implementation. Can we please clarify that? Because that will then provide a clear direction for the energy regulator. So that is the first thing. Then the second one is, so if, for instance, it is the problem is rather ESCOM's implementation, then it would mean that NERSA will have to also initiate a formal review of the RTP approval, because it will still be within our powers to the extent that something was wrong and these increases are quite excessive than they should have been. So we need to look into that. And then we must also consider what is the interim relief measures for the affected customers. If, for instance, there's a need to redesign the tariffs. So we do need that clarity so that we are very clear, because then increases of 18% and 30% are not insignificant, particularly from a perspective of affordability. So that is the one thing that I believe is critical. Then I would like to come to the issue that relates to competition matters. Currently, yes, in as much as we know the potential of a fixed charges structure as well as the legacy cost recovery mechanism, they do have a potential of raising the rivals cost, meaning that at SAWEM, those other traders or participants at SAWEM might find it difficult to compete if the fixed charges are going to be significant, and all of these other legacy charges are going to be significant and will have to be recovered somewhat. They have to pay them. And then you find that the energy costs are low to a point where these other participants are unable to compete fairly then at SAWEM. That will stifle investment, and I've said this repeatedly, and that would also mean that it is difficult for them to compete without, because their cost will be high as a result of this, and might not be able to compete fairly with ESCOM, for instance, at that stage. So that is what the report will suggest as a baseline of what we are seeing now, that there is that danger. It does not mean that the practice has already, the practice has taken place. But as things stand on fixed charges and all of these things, they have a potential of a margin squeeze, which means raising the competitor's cost, the rival's cost, number one. Number two, it also has the potential of predatory pricing, meaning that the energy cost from the other one party, the incumbent, are significantly low because they will recover that through the fixed cost. Then that is another possibility, a worry that is there. The question is, how do you prevent that? Because NERSA, you are in a better position. You have done this work. You see the danger, which is quite good. And then you will put measures in place to make sure that does not happen, which is good, which is why I'm saying this is a baseline. But it does not mean that something must be done as if the conduct or the practice has already taken place. It is something that is flagged in the report that cautions NERSA and other stakeholders. So I would not support that. At this point, there should be a policy brief between NERSA and the competition authorities. Yeah, I would discourage that. Reason being that we ourselves need to be cautious from our side. There's a part of the implementation which we are still not very clear from our side, whether there's something wrong with implementation. The second thing is whether NERSA ought to have provided sufficient clarity to the industry when the RTP was approved, so that then with the approval of the unbundling of the GCC and the fixed cost and so forth, then we've been able to communicate properly that these are the things, or this is what you are likely to see happening in the market, and see how you cushion it. So we are also from our side need to do something rather than to go to the competition authorities, because these costs might very well be costs that ought to have been recovered. Whether they are recovered at the right level by ESCOM at the implementation is something that this inquiry must uncover before we go to the competition authorities. I don't think that at this point we need to do any policy brief of any sort until we solve out this part from our side. Chairperson, I would like to also indicate that I just want to check something quickly. Yes, and then to the extent that the inquiry also uncovered issues of municipalities that started also charging without coming to us, also showing their unbundling so that we can see their cost, so that we can see their cost of supply. If they're also charging now GCC, how they structure and all of that. If now they have charged very high prices, excessive prices to their customers, the example of Ndlambe municipality, if that is the case, then as I indicated, market inquiry is not an investigation, but if it has evidence, it must then hand over so that the process can kickstart a process under Section 18 of the of the Electricity Regulations Act, insofar as Ndlambe municipality or any other municipality for that matter. So that one is very clear, and that's how inquiries will happen. So they will, go to further investigation. If evidence is sufficient, they go to a stage where another process kickstart. As I understand it, we already have a complaint against Ndlambe, as far as I know, as I was still in charge of the division. So if now this inquiry has uncovered this kind of evidence, surely the team, the division, would have to coordinate in that aspect and deal with that complaint with the assistance of the evidence that has been uncovered from this inquiry. And that should take its own course and assist there, rather than to wait and delay in respect of that complaint with the investigation that is here. Chairperson, there's also an issue of the time of use tariff, which needs to be dealt with here as to what actually went wrong with regards to the time of use, and if then there is any action that is proposed with regards to how Eskom has implemented the time of use. I would like to stop there for now, but there's a number of things that that can be done, and the consultation now is on the draft market inquiry report insofar as the findings are concerned and the recommendations are concerned, so that you give the parties an opportunity to respond to those findings as well as the recommendations to the extent that they have any other information to refute or to clarify the findings as well as recommendations. That will be the process of the inquiry itself in terms of its report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Madam Maseti. I'll now call upon Mr. Mkize.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I think from my side, just having also heard what Madam Maseti has commented upon, draws my attention to maybe a need of engagement in terms of what was envisaged, what is still envisaged in terms of achievement of some of the initiatives that were started off prior to your assumption of duty, and be able to streamline in terms of guidance to the team, so that there's an understanding of why we're doing what we're doing. And that draws me to the point of saying, if we're talking of why we're doing what we're doing, for me, then it talks to us being able to be clear. What is the end game, of this? I see this as a very important instrument in terms of evidence-based decision making and evidence-based stakeholder engagement, and as well as advocacy. This plays a very crucial role, and I think that we need to spell out the end game. And in as far as I can look at this, it doesn't mean that one has got to do everything to the T to start implementing some of the things. It talks to the issues that one had raised around ensuring that there is work that is done in the intervening periods between tariff applications, which then becomes important. I would really recommend that we are very clear with those, And the good thing also is that a person like the EM had indicated previously the switch to actually having some stronger program management or establishment of a PMU or program management unit, which will assist in working on such papers to inform us. So please, if they can just indicate that, I would appreciate. The other issue on this market inquiry from my side, just more pointed, is that let's be clear with the issues of surcharges, and as far as us playing alongside the municipalities, also to see how this can be developed in a manner that does not inadvertently undermine the regulation of the price of electricity. Because it would be good, really, when we're talking of the price of electricity, it is what the consumers also see and not find themselves that what appears on the bill is a bit problematic than what, or higher than what they had envisaged. Yeah, I think that issue of the surcharges for me is one of those thorny issues which also the public misunderstand, and it's important for us to be clear as to what this can, or as to what can be done in this regard. I will stop here, Chairperson. The issue I'm raising talks more to the communication implications, which is what is the end game? How do we seek to achieve? What do we seek to achieve by way of this market inquiry? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mkize. Now I'm going to hand over back to the team to respond, but I'd also like to give some direction to the team in terms of the order of the response. May I then ask the team the first thing that must respond on, because I see that in terms of recommendations, we're asking for 4 things. And if I heard Madam Maseti very well, one of the main issues she raised relates to the 4th recommendation that the team wants. Madam Maseti was saying that at this stage, she does not see the need for a policy brief, at this stage, that policy brief that involves people like the competition authorities. Can I just ask the team to start there first? Because this point from Madam Maseti also affects how we will have then to deal with the recommendations. That's why I want to start with that first, and thereafter, the team can then respond to the rest of the matters. So over to you, team, starting with that 4th recommendation, where Madam Maseti said maybe at this stage, no need for the policy brief. Over to you, team.
Thank you, Chair. I think I will allow Ms. du Plessis to add if there's anything that I am not covering adequately on the matter. But just to clarify that the collaboration that is being sought is not necessarily between the CCSA, but it is more like a collaboration internally between the ELR, the GCM department, as well as the RA team. So it's not an external collaboration that is being sought. I hope that clarifies, Chair. Thanks.
I think fine. Let's continue then with the rest of the clarifications, because the members will get a chance to respond after you have responded. So let's continue with the rest of your responses.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. So on the question whether there was a problem on the side of ESCOM during the implementation of the GCC and its entire RTP structure, the issue really is that the time of use restructuring hampered the agricultural sector quite significantly, because it rendered some customer bills higher than anticipated, in that the longer periods now under the more expensive tariffs were increased by 67%. So that is significant, even though that had not been foreseen when the determination was and the decision was taken. And for that reason, and as an interim relief, we have made a recommendation. We have made a recommendation that an ex post assessment of the RTP can be undertaken by the regulator, specifically on the RTP. And then that should allow NERSA to evaluate whether the restructuring of the tariff component achieve its intended objectives. And in that regard, Eskom would need to provide detailed revenue recovery and cost allocation documents, including the demand profiles and the customer migration information to enable such an assessment to take place at a granular level. And where evidence from that exercise indicates material divergence between what had been approved as assumptions and the currently realized outcomes, then NERSA should consider appropriate regulatory responses, including tariff design adjustments and increasing its monitoring processes as well over time. And then on the issue of Ndlambe municipality, again, there had been no concrete evidence rather than the verbal and qualitative complaints from customers. And there had been no quantitative analysis undertaken there to prove anything. But there is a recommendation specifically for Ndlambe municipality's case to be investigated further. And there's a recommendation talking to that a formal investigation has to be undertaken and to get to the bottom of the issue with the Ndlambe municipality and all the others, because the issue that we experienced was that we did receive comments and submissions from various stakeholders, but when we requested the quantitative data, some of the customers could not provide us with that, and for that reason, we could not undertake detailed quantitative analysis. So there's a recommendation again there on the report for that forward-looking process to be undertaken. And then in terms of the competition and the fact that there is a risk or a potential of competitive issues, we do recognize that there is a potential for the competitive effects under this current regime. But in the absence of concrete evidence in that regard, we have just flagged this aspect as a potential threat rather than making a conclusive conclusion on the fact. But the preventative measure talks to a comprehensive ex-ante assessment that takes into account all the economic impacts rather than just approving prices at face value as they come. But if there's anything I'm leaving behind in this regard, again, I would call upon Ms. du Plessis maybe to elaborate further. But as the inquiry team, we did not necessarily pinpoint any specific competition-related threat with tangible evidence at this point in time. And insofar as why we are doing what we are doing and how we are going to, or what the desired outcome or the next steps will be, the first, again, on the report, there is a section that talks to matters that were uncovered during the inquiry that fall outside the scope of the inquiry, including the issue of the surcharges and convenience charges and all those issues that are not necessarily regulated under ERA. And in that respect, the report makes a recommendation for NERSA to formally communicate the market inquiries observations regarding these issues, and also to reach out to relevant authorities, including the National Treasury and the Department of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, and the National Consumer Commission, to bring these issues to their attention for further actions or any collaborative issues or actions that could be taken between NERSA and those bodies. I think I will end it here for now, Chairperson, and if there's further clarity, I'll come in on that.
Okay, thank you, Madam Porter. Can I now call upon the members if they've got any further questions? Over to you, members. Yes, thank you, Madam Maseti.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, as Charles Gildart also worked closely with Ms. Porter, I would like to hear on the issues pertaining to the time of use, as well as the implementation of those charges, because that is the critical thing that will really inform the regulator, because the market inquiry scope was defined and it was very clear. It was to check the impact of the approval around the TRP, the tariff restructuring plan that we approved in January 2025 for Eskom. And then how then Eskom went about to implement. The expectations at the time were that all that was being done under the restructuring was not to increase the cost or those charges. So it was that the charges are bundled as they are. And now that we are moving to the, to transparency, cost reflectivity, and to the market, it is important that these charges be unbundled. It was never expected that because they are unbundled, then there will be an increase because they were already accounted for. You're simply doing unbundling. However, what happened thereafter are these significant increases, of which increases Eskom did not include in its application of ERSA, so that at least the retail tariffs for customers that are buying from Eskom, for instance, can then be able to see them through that ERSA process, which we also put out there for public comment. So we sequenced our decisions. The MYPD6, followed by the TRP, the unbundling. After the unbundling, it informs the retail tariff, the ERSA. So if there was anything at that stage, it ought to have been captured under ERSA. Not what we saw after April, when now ERSA has been approved, suddenly we see a different retail tariff for Eskom that is felt by customers. Instead of what we approve for Eskom to say, what tariff you are going to approve to charge to your customers is 12.74%. So that was the purpose of the inquiry, that scope, to see what is the effect, what caused this. And now, the nature of market inquiries will be such that there will be areas where there's glaring evidence. In this case, that glaring evidence is there for Ndlambe municipality. And already there is a complaint. When it comes to that, there's a need then that such information also be shared with the team that is investigating Ndlambe, working closely with this. That is the action. The second action that happens all over, whether it's South Africa or outside South Africa, will be that when it comes to the issue of what you call these increases that were never expected by the energy regulator. Yes, we take it to say this is the finding, and the recommendation will be that NERSA will initiate an investigation under Section X of the Act, or just proceed on the basis of Section 18 of the Act. 18 only if you've got evidence that ESCOM overcharged. That will be Section 18. But to the extent that you still need to strengthen evidence around what happened during implementation, you will invoke a different section of the Act. So you put that as the recommendations that will go out there so that ESCOM and others then react to that recommendation and the finding. Then you get to the time of use, what then happened there, and you also clarify. When it comes to surcharges, there is a recommendation. Our Act is very clear, the new Act, in terms of how we handle the issue of surcharge, so that there is no double dipping here and include some inefficient cost, but also the National Treasury as well for municipalities. When it comes to surcharges, then it will require cooperation and collaboration, and we can tell what harm is expected. So those are the different categories of recommendations, the way that we need to frame them, so that some could go straight to investigation. Some, if there's a glaring non-compliance, it goes to non-compliance and so forth. So that's how it will be categorized and framed properly, and forms part of the preliminary recommendations of the market inquiry, inviting stakeholders to comment on those recommendations as well as the findings. I think that is the way forward, Chairperson, the way that we need to take the process, and so that it doesn't prolong. And then we also warn against the observations of the way that these charges are so high, and such that also there could be a danger in the role of NERSA of introducing fair competition at SAWEM if nothing is done, and some monitoring of some sort when it comes to these charges, insofar as the potential of raising rivals' cost is concerned. I hope that I've summarized that, Chairperson, to assist. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Maseti. Team, can you also respond? Can the rest of the team assist Madam Porter as well? I see that Madam Maseti. Okay, yes. Yes, Mr. Geldart. Maybe let's start with Mr. Geldart. Thank you, Mr. Geldart.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning to all the members and the people on the public and who are online. Ms. Maseti, to answer your question, it appears that as far as the separation out of the fixed charges is concerned, it was done properly in my view and assessment. It is problematic because of, for the low users, it will always increase their charges because they have been subsidized in the past. However, the other side of the equation is that for the high users, their prices go down, so their average price goes down. With regard to and with regard to how we're going to proceed in the future, I think it is something which the regulator is going to have to consider very carefully, because there is a need for cost-reflective tariffs as we move to market, as the market changes, as the industry changes, and the next item on the agenda regarding the trading rules will highlight exactly some of the problems that are related to that. However, when it comes to the time of use changes, I think that is a different story. I'm very concerned with the way the time of use was reallocated, and I think there really needs to be some kind of investigation into seeing whether that was done, not done properly, but what the results of that are, to try and get it to be more equitable than it is. And maybe even we need to consider something that, because the impacts are differentiated across different customer categories, maybe it needs to be differentiated also across different customer categories. But that's my personal view, and I say thank you. That's my contribution. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Geldad. So let me just check again with the members if they've got any, or maybe before I check with the members if they've got any further questions, I just want to go back now to that fourth recommendation where Madam Porter has now clarified that they're actually calling for collaboration internally within the division. So just double check with Madam Porter and the team. If that is the case, then do you really need, if it's a collaboration internally to the division, do you really need that then to come as a recommendation or to come as an approval from the ELS? Can I just hear a response from the team or Madam Porter?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. You would see that on the submission, it's recommended for approval, but through the guidance from RSU as well, it's not necessary to even include it because it's just an operational issue between the division ELR and other divisions that could collaborate on the matter. Thank you, Chair.
All right, thank you. Can then take the opportunity once again for the members if they've got any further questions for the team. I do not see any further questions. So it sounds like then we are now ready to go to the recommendations. I'm going to read the recommendations again because instead of the originally request for 4, it has now gone down to 3 recommendations. So for the sake of completeness, when we get into the record itself, then let me just make sure that I read the recommendations correctly. Sorry, I'm struggling here now with my convene. Just hold on, I'm gonna get it. Yes, I'm there now. So we are now asking the members to vote on the recommendations, which is to note the draft report Annexure A on the market inquiry into the fixed impact charges and generation capacity charges, to approve the publication of the draft market inquiry report for stakeholder consultation and public comment, and thirdly, to note the competition report Annexure C on the cost of living and the findings thereof. So this is what we are asking the members to vote on in terms of the recommendation, obviously hand in hand with all the other enhancements that the members raised. So with that, if the members can, by show of hands, if they're in support of the 3 recommendations. I see Madam Semane.
Chairperson, I don't know how you framed the issue. Are we approving the report with the observations, findings, and recommendations so that the consultation is based on that? Just want to check.
Yeah, that's what I said. I said with all the enhancements that the members have raised. So with that, we are now reopening the voting. So I see Madam Simane, Mr. Mkize, Madam Sitole, Madam Maseti, and myself. So on that note, then we are now done with item number 8. We are now going to go to item number 9, trading rules. Mr. Matebula.
Chairperson, thank you. Chair, I must indicate that the purpose as well as the recommendations, Chair, will be enhanced to reflect what has already been guided on the previous submissions that we put before the subcommittee. So, Chair, it would read as bringing this submission for the subcommittee to note the draft rules, draft trading rules, and also the consultation paper, and as well as approving publication of the consultation paper. So, Chair, we will enhance that to ensure that it reflects properly. So, Chair, the trading rules, Chair, is a project that we started last year, and it had been published. We received comments. However, Chair, after receiving comments, and the comments were significant and substantial, and it changed the whole outlook of the packaged trading rules themselves to an extent that we had to re-workshop them with the members and also re-workshop them with the team or group of stakeholders that we started with when we were working on this particular project. So, Chair, we therefore, as guided, saw a need that we should be republishing this current draft of these trading rules, Chair, to ensure that it incorporates all the inputs that were gathered from the first round of public consultation, as well as the further inputs that were received from the group of stakeholders that participated in the development of these rules together with the regulator or together with NERSA. So, Chair, I would just want to allow Ms. Mulifiani just to talk to specific enhancements that were made on these trading rules since the last workshop, as it is to be consulted on to ensure that we have taken into consideration all the guidance that the members had put forward during the workshop, as well as other issues that were brought forward by the key stakeholders. Ms. Mulifiani.
Thank you, Mr. Matebula. Good morning, Chairperson, all the members of the board and colleagues. Yes, as mentioned, I would also just like to acknowledge that there is an enhancement required in terms of the purpose and the recommendations. So I will reread the recommendations at the end. But yeah, post the 13th of May, during the extended ELS workshop, a decision was made to undertake a second round of consultation for the electricity trading rules. And so the team reconvened to rework on the version, taking into consideration the comprehensive consultations that came from the working group. The working group that consisted of SAITA, which is the South African Electricity Traders Association, as well as other individual traders, Eskom, SALGA, and the AMEU. And we also took into consideration also the comments that were made in the previous round of the stakeholder consultation and also the public hearing that have happened and other members of the public. So there were some key enhancements made as listed under section 10 of the submission. And these key enhancements are also presented in the consultation paper, and also there are questions shared on the consultation paper into the key enhancement areas. I'll probably also just, maybe for the sake of time, just to highlight the most noteworthy comments that were made that came from SAITA, the traders, and also ESCOM, because those were the key, the major comments that caused certain tensions amongst the working group. And then I'll also just list the other key enhancements at the end. But the first one from SAITA and also the traders was that they required, one of their major concerns was that the approved rules should apply to all customers irrespective of their supply voltage and their demand. And so the team reconvened and took into consideration also the recommendations that they provided in terms of their input on that specific recommendation. And so the current rules does allow for customers, irrespective of their voltage level, with a notified maximum demand of not less than 1 MVA to participate starting from phase 1. And as the retail market improves, as mentioned in the different phases, it will open to all the consumers to participate. And one of the major requirements is that these customers, as long as they satisfy technical readiness requirements, then they therefore can participate in trading. Another major concern that came about was issues related to tariff reform. As mentioned, this is an area of tension when it was initially brought forward to the working group members as well as other stakeholders. However, with continuous engagement, where NERSA participated also as an observer in a working group between the working group members, as I had mentioned, it was high. At that point, they did recognize that issues related to tariff reform it's a critical matter that needed to be addressed. And therefore, it was acknowledged that there is a need to address it in a form in the process of the development of the electricity trading rules. And as such, the rules recognizes tariff reform as a prerequisite to fair retail competition and outlines these requirements in Section 9 of the rules. Other areas will be reflecting on what blocks, what the blocking circumstances are. So what blocks a primary retailer to refuse the facilitation of a switch or entry into a direct supply, as it is listed in Section 10.7 of the rules. We also do highlight the eligible generators and consumers. And also we do share in the rules the trading restrictions and contracting processes. And another area is to list and present to the public what non-bypassable charges need to be recovered. And the consultation paper does also request comments from the public if the identified NBCs or non-bypassable charges do truly reflect what needs to be considered in terms of tariff reform. And then also the rules as now presented, they do provide a full roadmap to retail. So with the different phases, it does describe how regulation must develop in order to get to a point where there is full retail competition and rather the electricity market is open fully for competitive participation. Yes, thank you. As such, we would like to recommend to the members of the board to note the consultation paper on the draft electricity trading rules, and also approve the publication of the consultation paper on the draft trading rules, and also note the timelines proposed for public consultation. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Can I now call upon the members if they've got any questions? Over to you, members. Yes, Madam Maseti.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thanks to the team for the comprehensive introduction. Chairperson, I just want to check with the team as they have started this process. There were webinars that were held with stakeholders, which were very useful. And also in the sense that instead of us just working and coming up with certain changes when we have made good progress at the beginning, when we published the trading rules, there were just things that stakeholders were saying, oh, well, here, you don't need to duplicate, here, just do some, cross-referencing and so forth. So they said that, they're good enough if we can take care of those specific things. And that was a good outcome coming out of the continuous engagements through the webinars with all stakeholders, including ESCOM. So I just wanted to find out if the team has continued with that, because I found that to be useful. And that is so that we avoid the situation where there was a lot of resistance from stakeholders following the public hearing. The version after the public hearing changed significantly, that stakeholders were very unhappy. So I'm trying to then check now, when we are about to publish for comment, if at least we followed that process, which I found to be useful, so that as the regulator, we understand what would work, and we're not putting things that will block at the market and block the way that the market is supposed to work. We don't want to be seen to be doing that, because that's not the intention. So that is the reason I'm asking this question. Then, as we had obviously the workshop on this, I am quite happy with some of the things that we have done, but there was another key issue that was raised relating to the supplier of last resort. I'd like to hear the team, and this mainly came from ESCOM as well as the municipalities, SALGA and AMEO. That aspect needs to be also considered carefully. So I would like to understand the team insofar as that aspect is concerned. How did you address that aspect in these redrafted rules? Then there are issues that were raised by ESCOM. It is not to say that take them as they are, but I think it will be fair for the process that when stakeholders put forward their views, that we do show that we have considered their views. To the extent that we don't accommodate their views or take a decision that incorporates or that is aligned to their views, it is not to say that we did not consider them. So I did find that there are some useful points that were mentioned there. So we do need to address those and put them out there to stakeholders to comment specifically on those. And I also do recall that SALGA also supported part of those issues. So it is important to balance the interest of all stakeholders as the regulator, but also put some of these views out there for everybody to see them and comment on them. And it is not to say that NERSA has already taken a decision on those issues, but you put them out there, give stakeholders an opportunity to specifically comment on those. For me, with the other matters that were raised, especially with regards to the what you call the original version of the document that was out there and the things stakeholders have already commented on, I am fine with that. It's just these issues that I have raised, as well as perhaps the formulation of remember, we put the limitation on the, let me just see, on high voltage, right? Which was problematic because the medium voltage is already there. So I just wanted to see now in terms of what is it that we are putting there for the phasing in. What are we basing it on? Just to make sure that it will not destabilize the market as the others are already in the market. And secondly, it does not unnecessarily raise barriers to entry into the market. For me, those are the key economic and regulatory considerations that I would like the team to take into account. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Madam Maseti. May I now call upon the team to provide a response to the matters raised by Madam Maseti. Over to you, team.
Thank you so much, Ms. Maseti. I will answer the questions and also just ask Mr. Mkhize to help where I have missed. And in terms of the enhancement of the current rules, they definitely did not interfere with the areas that were approved in the previous versions, especially the ones where there was a consensus amongst the working group. So the current version tried as much as possible to try and address only the areas where there were strong recommendations where we also felt as a team that require enhancements, but we did not work into removing any of the other elements that were approved in the previous versions. Maybe just also to add that another element was just to add a more detailed framework in terms of how we reach to a competitive market, and hence there is a phased approach in the rules where you have phase one in 4 phases that look into what are the different elements that needs to occur in the different phases, and once you get to the full retail market, what are the frameworks that are required. And as such, I will maybe answer the last questions. I know I'm not going with on sequence, but maybe in terms of the phasing in, I just wanted to touch on that at the current moment, the phasing in is done on demand. So only in phase one, consumers that are less than 1 megawatt at the current moment is that participation is only, it's available for consumers that are 1 megawatt and above. And the voltage restriction has been removed. In the consultation with the working groups, it was acknowledged that that can be a form of participation and avoiding any issues from a sustainable participation. As long as we do take a recognition of tariff reforms that need to take place in order to address the sustainability for the incumbents. And then, and perhaps maybe I will just ask Mr. Mkhize to support with the other areas in terms of answering the questions.
Yes, no, thank you, Ms. Molefian. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, there are 4 questions that Ms. Maseti has asked, which Ms. Molefian has done a good job to attempt to respond to. But I will just add, maybe just to touch on in terms of the first one, the process that was followed was indeed, really commended by many stakeholders in a sense that it was highly consultative. All interested and affected stakeholders were put around the table to sort of give input to the initial draft that we came up with in December of 2025. But however, Chair, after the consultation process as well as the public hearings, there was indeed a version that came out which was not widely accepted. However, Chair, I would just like to state that, as a regulator, we obviously have to consider all matters and not just, complaints that come from certain stakeholders, obviously, who have personal interests. So we had to ensure that there's a balance, as Ms. Maseti has alluded to, in terms of the needs of all the stakeholders. And hence we have come up with this version, which has then taken the issues, particularly that ESCOM raised with regards to revenue issues, if we continue trading in the same manner as we are at this point in time, where tariffs are not yet fully unbundled, and it is not clear, because of the nature of the tariffs being volumetric, it is not yet clear where money is going. So if there are multiple players involved, then there needs to be clarity in terms of the unbundling of tariffs and so on. So I believe Ms. Molefiana did mention that sufficiently. And then in terms of the supplier of last resort, Ms. Maseti, that has been removed from this current version of the rules. What we have now is the primary retailer, which is the licensed distributor, where the consumer is connected. That primary retailer owns the network, and there is a electricity supply agreement between the customer as well as the primary retailer. So that basically means that only licensed distributors are primary retailers, and there is no switching of primary retailer until the 4th phase of the rules, where we will have full market competition. And this is basically for the fact, as Ms. Molefiane has said, that these frameworks, such as supply of last resort, would need to be developed before there is any switching of primary retailer, if we are to develop this market in an orderly fashion. But in the first 2 phases, only the municipality and ESCOM will play the role of primary retailer. And then the issue of the criteria for which customers become contestable or are eligible for participation was put in place, as Ms. Molefiane has said, in terms of customers that are 1 MVA and larger. And this is basically for practical purposes, in the sense that there has to be appropriate metering, such as time of use metering, that is in place for fair trade to take place with those particular customers. Also, in terms of the Mega Flex tariff, it is already sufficiently unbundled to enable some form of fair competition to take place among that group of customers. So that is one of the major reasons why we have kept it to customers that are above 1 MVA, as well as customers that have the appropriate metering. It's purely for practical purposes. So the aim is not really to to create barriers to entry, but to ensure fair competition. So all traders that have the qualification or that meet the minimum criteria can apply for a license and be issued a trading license. So we are not, in that sense, creating a barrier for entrance or new entrants into this market. But this is for practical purposes, so that there is no unfairness in the manner that competition takes place. I think we've covered it, Chair, but if there's anything else that we have not covered, we are still here for a second round of questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mkhize. I will now call upon the members if they've got any follow-up questions. Thank you, members. I do not see any hands. So then at this stage, we'll have to move towards voting for the recommendations, which I'm not going to repeat because Madam Molifiane did read the recommendations. So I'm now going to call upon the members by show of hands if they are in support of the recommendations. Thank you, Madam Sumane. Thank you, Madam Sitole. Thank you, Madam Maseti. I am also in support. Also, thanks to Mr. Mkhize. So on that note, we are now done with item number 9. We are now going to go to item number 10, which is for noting. It is for the noting of the round robin approval consolidated report on the electricity generation industry compliance audits conducted in the fourth quarter of the 2025/26 financial year. So if I can ask the members by show of hands if they are noting this round robin, members. Thank you, Madam Maseti. Thank you, Madam Sumane. Thank you, Madam Sitole. Thank you, Mr. Mkhize. I'm also in support, which then takes us to the next agenda item, which is item number 11. Number 11 item is also noting of the round robin approval application for the cessation and transfer of Investec Bank Limited EPIX Pty Ltd trading license. Once again, I am going to ask the members by show of hands if they are noting this round robin. Thank you, members. Thank you, Madam Maseti. Thank you, Madam Sumane. Thank you, Mr. Mkhize. Thank you, Madam Sitole. I am also in support of that. So we are now done with item number 11. So at this stage, then, we have now come to the end of the section of the meeting that was opened for the public. So we are now going to close this meeting for the public and continue without the public. But before we close it to the public, may I then take this opportunity to thank all the members of the public that attended this public meeting via the various streaming platforms.